Hey there! I'm Poppy and I'm a green pea. And I'm Pete, a yellow pea. Today, we're going to talk about, drumroll, Punnett squares. Punnett squares are tools that help us predict what traits offspring might have based on their parents' genes. Yep, it's like a genetic guessing game, except we can figure out the chances of different traits showing up like green peas or yellow peas. But first, we need to know a few key words. The genotype is the genetic makeup, basically the combination of alleles or different forms of a gene that you have, like big G, big G, big G, or little g, little g. Think of it like your secret code for your traits. The phenotype is what you see. It's how the genes are expressed, like whether a pea looks green or yellow. In genetics, some traits are dominant and some are recessive. If a trait is dominant, it means that if at least one parent contributes that allele, the trait will show up in the offspring. For example, green peas, big G, are dominant over yellow peas, little g. And if a trait is recessive, it means both alleles must be the same for that trait to show. So, for a pea to be yellow, it needs to have two little g alleles, or little g, little g. When you have two of the same alleles, it's called homozygous. So that could be big G, or little g, little g. And when you have one of each, like big G, little g, you're heterozygous. It means your alleles are different. Let's start with a monohybrid cross. That means we're looking at just one trait like pea color. We'll cross a homozygous green pea, big G, with a homozygous yellow pea, little g, ge. What do we get? All the offspring are heterozygous, big G, which means their genotype is big G, little g. They'll all be green because green is dominant. So, the genotypic ratio is 100% big G, little g, and the phenotypic ratio is 100% green peas. Now let's cross two heterozygous peas, big G x big G, little g. Oh, this time we get a mix. The genotypic ratio is 1 to 2 to 1. That means one big G, two big G, and one little g. And the phenotypic ratio is 3 to 1, 3 green peas and 1 yellow pea. What if we don't know if a pea is homozygous or heterozygous? We can do a test cross. In a test cross, you breed the unknown plant with a homozygous recessive one, little g, and see what happens. Half of the offspring are green, big G, and half are yellow, little g. So the unknown parent was heterozygous. Cool, huh? If all offspring were green, we'd know the unknown parent was big G. Now let's level up. We're going to look at two traits at the same time. This is called a dihybrid cross. Imagine we're looking at pea color, big G for green, little g for yellow, and pea shape, big R for round, little r for wrinkled. Let's cross a plant with alleles big G, big R, little r with one that has big G, big R, little r. Whew, that's a lot of combinations, but we end up with different genotypes. What about the traits? The phenotypic ratio here is simpler. Because green and round are both dominant, we end up with mostly green and round peas, but there are also some green wrinkled, yellow round, and yellow wrinkled ones. Now, let's do a classic dihybrid cross, where both parents are heterozygous for two traits. Big G, big R, little r, X, big G, big R, little r. Wow, that's a lot of combinations. But the magic number we're looking for is 9331. That's right, in this cross, the phenotypic ratio comes out to 9 green round peas, 3 green wrinkled peas, 3 yellow round peas, and 1 yellow wrinkled pea. And because Punnett squares show all the possible combinations, they also tell us the probability of each trait showing up. Exactly! Each box is like a possible outcome for the offspring. So, if we count how many boxes have a certain trait combination, we can see the likelihood of it appearing. Probability in genetics is just like flipping a coin. If there's a 50% chance for heads or tails, the same is true for dominant and recessive alleles. Right! In a monohybrid cross between two heterozygous plants, big G, little g, x big G, little g, The Punnett square shows there's a 75% chance for a green pea, because big G is dominant. Yep, just like there's a 25% chance for a yellow pea, little g. Punnett squares let us see those chances or probabilities, and with two traits in a dihybrid cross, the probabilities work for each trait individually and then combine. So, if there's a 75% chance of being green and a 75% chance of being round, we multiply them to find that most peas will be green and round. Punnett squares may look complicated at first, but they help us understand how traits are passed down and the probability of seeing certain traits. Yeah, whether you're a green pea, a yellow pea, round or wrinkled, genetics helps us predict it all. And now you can use Punnett squares to crack the code of heredity and even understand the probabilities of traits showing up. Thanks for learning with us today. Remember, peas out.